share a true family historical story called My Great-Grandfather and the Transcontinental Railroad. My Great-Grandfather and the Transcontinental Railroad, Eileen Lundquist.
Thank you, Martin. Don't start a timer yet. All these gadgets need to be here. And let's see. I can start now. The story of my great-grandfather begins in 1862. During the year of California gold rush, and the time marked by mass migration and the promise of a better life. The 49ers and others traveled 2,000 miles in wagon trains, with around 350,000 people embarking the journey. Tragically, about 30,000 died en route, an average of 15 deaths per mile, underscoring the critical need for speed and safety. In response to these challenges, President Lincoln issued the Pacific Railroad Act, initiating the construction of the Transcontinental Railroad to two companies. The Central Pacific Railroad began its work from California, and the Union Pacific started from Nebraska. The Chinese Central Pacific worker, indeed, Sierra, has the most demanding job of the entire Transcontinental Railroad through the mountainous miles. While it took over 4 years to build 154 miles in the western region of the railroad, it only took 1 year built the 400 flat miles in the east. After 7 years of arduous labor, the two lines finally met in Utah in the middle. Facing a labor shortage, Charles Crocker hired Chinese workers, although the construction supervisor doubted their capabilities. And Crocker reminded him about the Great Wall of China, the world's largest masonry structure built by the Chinese hand. Initially, 100 Chinese workers were hired in California, and because of their impressive performance, led the company to recruit more workers from southern China. Southern China is right there. And ultimately, 200,000 Chinese laborers comprise over 90% of the workforce contributed to the construction of the railroad. Guangdong, China is located in the south shore of China, nearby the China Sea, and it shares a tropical climate as Hawaii. The Chinese worker provide several advantages. First of all, the railroad can rely on them to stay and do their job well. And they're sober and hardworking. And they're cheaper too. Finally, they ate a healthier diet that helped them to avoid dysentery. Under the Qing dynasty in China, it faced a series of natural disaster, and on top of that, by 1863, China had lost several wars to the Western power. The internal war conflicts also create significant casualties, huge number right there. So the Central Pacific agent promote the false promise of a gold mountain and representing great wealth and better life. These promises were designed to lure more workers to help build the railroad. The harsh condition in China particularly attracted to the desperate Chinese to the American West. My great-grandfather was one of the 20,000 workers responded to this promise. At age 19, he left home and his new wife, embarking on a perilous journey of 45-day and 11,000 miles ocean voyage. Disease were rampant in the crowded and unsanitary conditions, and about 10% of the passengers did not survive the journey, including his brother who came with him. The disinformation campaign used in the recruiting advertising was eventually exposed. Reality were far worse than anyone had anticipated. The unforgiving mountains of the Sierra Nevada, made of granite, not gold, proved to be even more brutal than the conditions in Guangdong. Chinese central workers in the Sierra faced the most demanding condition of the entire Transcontinental Railroad construction. The labor was nothing short of grueling, with the entire railroad assembled by hand. These resilient workers, toiling tirelessly, shoveled 20-pound rocks over 400 times per day. They faced with perilous working conditions, including the constant fear of accidental explosion, snow and rock avalanches, and other hazards. Particularly at the 7,000 elevation, the thin air and punishing cold weather added their suffering. During the year of 1866 to 67, approximately 40 storms dumped on the region, and the workers huddled in their rusty cabins, fearing around the snow and dangling icicles, fearing the snow avalanche to bear them alive. My great-grandfather assessed the risk, and then he became a camp cook. He found trusty Allens to transfer his earnings back to home to his family, and for the next 60 years. It took 4 years to blast through 154 miles of Sierra Nevada mountain granite on the western portion of 1,776 miles of the entire Transcontinental Railroad. 15 tunnels were drizzled out by hand with dynamite, and 37 miles of snow shed had to construct to protect the train from the snows avalanches. One particular tunnel was the most difficult tunnel is the Summit Tunnel, and I happened to hike there a few months ago to honor my great-grandfather's legacy. Another construction is called the China Wall next to the Summit Tunnel, and it is a 150 feet tall freestanding structure. It's one of its largest, one of the kind, the largest in the world. This chiseled bridge was built to carry the train through a deep valley, and because the train amber caused fire, they have to fill the entire bridge with earth, and now it's buried underneath underneath the earth. If you go to visit, you don't really see the bridge. All right, the inaugural run carries the antelope from Sacramento to Reno on June 18th, 1867, is at a speed of 16 miles per hour and runs 9.5 hours and marked the regular service between the two cities. On May 10th, 1869, finally the two railroad lines joined. However, there's none of the Chinese workers were in the photographic, and also none of the written word was published, was found. The construction of the Transcontinental Railroad stands as a remarkable testament to human endurance and engineering brilliance. But the people of Chinese heritage face severe discrimination. The Chinese Exclusion Right Act of 1882 banned Chinese laborers from entering the US, voting, or becoming naturalized citizens, regardless how long they lived in California. And this act was in effect for the next 61 years until May 2014. Deputy Labor Secretary Chris Lu induced the Chinese railroad worker into the Department of Labor's Hall of Honor. My great-grandfather Su Hai's sacrifice support the next 2 generations, lifting us out from poverty to prosperity, allowed higher education, and built 2 houses for our family where I lived during my childhood. After 60 years, he returned to China, reunited with his wife at age 79, and then he died with a heart condition in 5 years. My great-grandfather's sacrifice allowed me to dream my American dream, to make me become who I am today. I am grateful for his sacrifice. What is your ancestor's story?